Hey guys, Prangell Gaming here, welcome back to Talk the Wall. This is the 44th instalment, and before we get right into any responses and questions you may have had, if you haven't seen any of the other 43 instalments, then why not go check them out. There's going to be a link in the description of this video for the last Talk the Wall, and alternatively, if you have missed any of the episodes, then click the I button and there'll be a playlist link where you can catch up with any episodes you have missed. Now, do feel free to put your predictions for this first playoff leg, which is apparently at the Den against Scunthorpe United. I can't wait for this game. It's going to be really interesting. The Den is going to be booming, and I will cover those predictions next week as I always do. Now, with this podcast, do bear in mind I recorded it on the Sunday straight after the match, so if any new news stories appear or if any of the stories become outdated, then I'll talk about that and cover that next week. On to your predictions for the final game of the league season, which was against Bristol Rovers, and only 3 of you predicted, and well, it's safe to say none of you were actually right, but I kind of have an idea. That's due to the fact that a 4-3 scoreline is very hard to predict. I mean, let's be honest, I never expected that to be the scoreline at the end of the game, and with the 3 predictors, Liam Gaming 2 and Ray Narration both said that Millwall would win 2-0, with Liam saying that Morrison and O'Brien would score for the Lions, and Ray also said that Gregory and Webster would score. Now, the closest predictor was Alfie Ross, who thought the Lions would win 3-1. Last week, Liam Gaming 2 left a question saying, who do you think will stay and leave in the summer? And no one answered this question. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on, as I've answered this a couple times in the past. On to your comments this week, and wow, this week has been a week where there are a lot of strong views, and so I will be covering it bit by bit, pulling it all apart, and we're going to be breaking down a lot of the comments in this podcast. Hopefully it won't be too long, because there are lesser and lesser comments as we've gone on. And so we're going to be starting with a very passionate Joe Holloway, who said, I really want Harris out after this season. I get it, he is our top goal scorer in history, but he isn't a tactically stable manager and he has no talent. Now, before I say anything, Harry CD responded to Joe in the comments section saying, I really disagree with you over this, as Harris may not be the best of managers, but he's made a few mistakes, and I wouldn't say that he's not a great tactical manager, as he's led us to a playoff final and an FA Cup quarter final, which included getting 3 Premier League scalps, and he could still get us promoted. Let's not forget that. He is proper wall. Joe did respond to this, and so we'll cover this, and he said, but how long do we keep saying he's taken us so far? It's no good saying he's taken us places. We play 4-4-2 and lose to a weak Oxford side with no plan B. If we concede first, we struggle because we play to defend, and he doesn't change the formation to counter this. Right, so let's break this down. I have to argue with some facts and compare Harris to another manager that we've had in the past, Ian Holloway. I reckon you guys will find that a little bit interesting. So, the first point that I don't get is why fans want Harris out in the first place. I've heard a lot of this nonsense over the last couple of weeks. Since we lost to Oxford, it's got stronger and stronger, and may I just add, Oxford are a very strong side. They are 9th in the league at the time that they beat us, so that is fantastic. Had they actually had a couple more games, they may have even got themselves a playoff space. Anyway, yes, we lost 3-0. Let's get over that for starters. It isn't as bad as it seems. It was actually our first loss at home since the 10th of December, where we lost 1-0 to Shrewsbury Town. And sometimes you have those bad games. I know we was on a bad run, but I'm not being funny. Sometimes you do lose games. Sometimes you do struggle. It's not the end of the world. Now, in regards to he has no managerial talent, he is inexperienced. And I'm going to read you some stats from the sackrace.com. So there'll be a link in the description for that, so you can go check them out yourselves. And what it says is that he's managed 128 matches. Now, this was taken before the Bristol Rovers game. And if you consider that out of those, 46 have come in the league season, he has done 92 in the league over the 2 times. And as a young manager that hasn't been coaching long, he's got a great win percentage, 47.2%. That is a pretty big number. I mean, it's just under half of his win percentage rate. That's just under half the games. That is really, really good stat for someone like Harris to have. Now, as I said, I would compare it to Ian Holloway, who's one of our previous managers that now manages QPR. Now, again, this stat was taken before the game against Bristol Rovers, and well, he's got a win percentage of 32.1%. Yes, you could argue that the Championship is harder and a lot higher up than what our talents are. But I'm not being funny. You guys want to be up there, and he has been there for 5 or so months and had 28 matches, so that is something to take into account. But still, his win percentage is less than Harris's, and you could argue it's due to the time he's been there, but either way, it still says something for itself. Point I'm making here is Holloway has been considered as a great manager, and he's managing in the league that we want to be managing in. So if he's struggling, it sort of says something, doesn't it? Because with the lack of resources that Harris has, getting promoted would mean that his win percentage would be much worse. We wouldn't be able to invest that much money into players, and I really think that it would be a lot harder for us to succeed in the Championship than League One. Let's be honest, it is quite evident. But I get your point that when we concede the first goal, sometimes we do struggle, and that's not due to Millwall themselves struggling. It's due to the fact that a lot of teams set up to defend against us. So here's a little bit of information. Against Fleetwood, who are a better side than us, they finished in 4th place, which it's not too bad. It's a lot better of an improvement from their previous season. We had 9 shots against them on target, and we weren't poor. We didn't score, but that doesn't paint the whole picture of the game. Their goalkeeper was superb. And as for times we don't score, sometimes it is due to the age in Morrison and Gregory, and I do think that last season was a fluke. They won't be scoring that many goals again because they're slow attackers, and it's also the fact that they can't get into the areas that they could last season, and we've had to rely on a lot of players to get us through this problem this season. But it's just proven that sometimes your strikers, they do a little bit better in previous seasons than the past, and when they get older, it does mean they will start to decline in form. I do want to end this kind of my comments on this question by talking about what Harry said, as I understand where he's coming from, but I have to hugely stand in the middle with this one. I can say that Neil's done a great job. No one can actually discredit him from that. He's released 18 players, which would have caused us a lot of money because they're on a lot of money, which again, we don't have the most money. Yes, he has led us to Wembley and a quarter-final, but there is a danger of us Millwall fans pretending everything's alright. And well, I think this is due to a problem that stems from the fact a lot of fans thought we'd go straight back up, and we didn't last season. We actually had an amazing campaign, and this year we've gone backwards in terms of we finished a lot lower. The squad didn't get enough points. We haven't been scoring as many goals, and we've had a lot of games where we've actually struggled. But this squad is better, as Ben Thompson, Marlon Romeo, Aidan O'Brien and Fred all have more experience and more time under their belts. And I don't think the fact is that we've struggled just due to the fact that our squad's just underperformed. There's a lot of factors. Another one would be the fact that there's been a lot of sides that have been overperforming. Fleetwood, Southend, Rochdale, Oxford United and Bristol Rovers are all sides that I certainly didn't expect to finish in the top 12. As Fleetwood finished 4th this season. Last season they were 19th in the league, so there's a significant jump in quality there. Southend finished 7th this season. They were 15th last season. Rochdale were 10th last season and obviously had a pretty good campaign this year. And Oxford and Rovers were both promoted from League 2, so this league's got a lot harder. And had we not been on our unbeaten run, then I reckon we would have been in a serious bad place. And we didn't get automatic promotion, but I don't find that so much as a problem. And well, Neil Harris and his management staff and everything, it isn't a fact of he's untouchable, because he does get a lot of stick. But the fact is, some of this stick is unwarranted, and the fact is that if we get promoted within 3 years, then that's not a problem to me. He said it'd take 3 years. If it takes that long, it takes that long. But if it starts to get more than 3 years, then it could be a problem, and then we'll start looking at it then. So sorry for that long section, but a lot needed addressing there. Just note that some of those stats may be a little out, as the stats were taken before the Bristol Rovers game. Due to timing of the recording and the match, I couldn't get the stats straight after because I needed to go straight into recording. On to the next person to comment, and it was Riley Solo, who said 3 things. The first being, I think Archer should go. The team played well and the goals were just all Archer's fault. With this, if you've been watching my podcast over the 44 weeks now, you'll see that I'm not Archer's biggest fan, but selling him probably isn't going to be the best of things. He's just returned from injury, so we could argue that he has actually been injured for a little while. He's just getting back into it. Now, I wouldn't want Archer to go. I think he's made quite a few mistakes. He cost us against Sheffield United, with 2 against Rochdale, and obviously I believe 3 of the goals he cost us against Oxford, but Webster maybe could have blocked one of them. But with him, he is rusty coming back, and it's just poor timing because King's been pretty well and hasn't deserved dropping. So, to be honest, I think that as Archer's our number one, we shouldn't be getting rid of him. If he says he's fit and the medical staff agree with him, then he has to play. But I do prefer King at the moment. And, well, all I have to say is Archer has to play if he says he's fit, because at the end of the day, he's the number one goalkeeper. Riley's second comment was, I think we should go back to the CYC kit, which isn't a bad shout, if I'm honest, as I think we had them for our sponsors for quite a while, and I did actually like them. Riley's final comment was Hartlepool. Haha, it's Hartlepool. And I've got to apologise here, I did say that wrong, it was a slip of the tongue. I do say a lot of things, and so cramming it all down into a little podcast, sometimes you get these things wrong, sorry about that. Harry CD did comment on two things after that, and they are long, so this podcast may well be a little bit longer than the last one. I'm hoping it doesn't go too much over. And so what we're going to be talking about, the first comment was, Harry said, I think Jed Wallace has lived up to his expectations in my opinion. I'm not sure why people are ripping into him. I don't know what everyone expected. At the end of the day, he's Jed Wallace, not Lionel Messi. What more can he actually do for us? When he came back, everyone seemed to automatically presume he was going to be a miracle and win us the league. He's only one player, and it really winds me up when people call him a flop. So first and foremost, Harry, this is a great argument, mate, and well, when Jed Wallace joined us, I wasn't exactly thrilled, to be honest. I didn't want him to come back because I don't like it when a player returns to a club, because usually it isn't good for the club nor player. So, he has clearly exceeded my expectations, and if I'm going to be honest, I think he's improved much more than last time, with his goal scoring especially. He's got 3 goals, and all those goals have been great to watch. He's also been a key player of mine for many matches, not just due to the fact that he scores goals or he's assisted anything, it's all about the work rates and putting in a great shift, and Jed Wallace has been doing that. Defensively, he's been great as well. It's not just about attacking. Jed has come as a whole package to this club, and I have no problem with him whatsoever. Harry CD's second comment was, I went to an under-23s game against Charlton the other night. Charlton are top in a development league with us second, and Neil Harris was at the game. Harry Smith didn't look 100% of that game at all, and he did come off at half time and didn't actually affect the game whatsoever. However, I found it interesting that Jamie Philpott was playing as an attacking midfielder and he ran his heart out. I've also got to point out a youngster called Lewis White, who scored an absolute screamer. I've heard great things about him before so far. As the winger, he actually ticks all the boxes you would need, and I think it won't be too long before he pushes into the senior team. So what will I say about Harry's comment? Well, Jamie Philpott looks good. He doesn't really ever succeed when he plays mainly for the actual team instead of the youth team. Pre-season he looked great and probably one of my star players. Now in terms of him playing cam, that doesn't really mean anything for the team because we don't play with that position. So he'd still be in the same place where he's not getting game time. But this Lewis White guy, he seems pretty good. So keep an eye on him and any other Millwall youngsters so we can talk about them in this podcast. Maybe do a little scouting report if you wish to do so. Raineration then asked 2 questions. Those were, if Harris was to leave as manager, could you see Morrison taking over? And in the summer, who would be your 3 signings that you'd like to see come to the club? So let's answer the first one. So if Harris was to leave in a couple of years, then maybe Morrison could take over? I don't know. I don't think he would though. I really don't. I can't see him as a manager. I really can't. He's too hot-headed in my opinion. And if he stays at Millwall, then chances are he will actually become a coach. But Steve Morrison as the Millwall manager, I don't know. Not many people do want to be the Millwall manager, so it could be interesting, but I'm going to go with no. The answer to his second question on the 3 signings for Millwall, well, I find this one really interesting. I've got a couple of people in mind and I'll talk about them quickly. So the first position and player that I'll probably look at is someone strong and physical who can score goals, like John Okinde of Barnet. And, well, we was linked with him at the start of the season and I wouldn't mind having him as an option. The second player/position we need is a new centre-back. If Sid Nelson isn't going to challenge next season, and with me actually expecting that Jake Cooper is likely returned to Reading, that means we need a new centre-back. Now, whether that's Curtis Nelson, who plays for Oxford as their permanent player, or Charlie Raglan, who's on loan to them from Chesterfield, then I wouldn't mind, as they really had an incredible partnership that kept us from scoring at the Den. Now, my problem with this is that Nelson joined Plymouth on a free last summer, and Raglan is on loan from relegated Chesterfield, so as he's been performing at Oxford, they might try and sign him. I've been an admirer of Nelson for a while, and I thought that he was great for Plymouth. And Oxford have made a great signing when they got him, and again, when he played us, he was one of their top players. The final position I would look at is a right winger, as Fred could be on his way out, and if we don't sign Jed Wallace, which I just don't know whether we have or haven't, then we're going to need someone in that position. And if I had to name a player, I'm an admirer of Portsmouth FC's Cal Naismith. He is getting promoted, so that's the only downside with Portsmouth, and that would actually boost his price up. But he's a well-rounded player at the age of 25, and I really think he can do a great job. He can play on the right or the left of the midfield, and his stats are incredible. 40 matches while scoring 13 goals and assisting 12. That makes him a perfect player to challenge David Worrell, though David Worrell hasn't really impressed me in his first season in a Millwall shirt. After that, Alfie Ross said, I'm a Millwall fan from Lincoln and I've watched Lincoln a few times. Shaun Raggett looks a solid, hard-working player. So there you go. There's a scout report from Alfie, a fan that actually lives in Lincoln, on Shaun Raggett. So thank you so much for that, Alfie. We'll keep that in mind. Liam Gaming 2 was the final person to comment, and before he said that, he said the chants. And these were, oh, Stevie Morrison. Moo. His next chant was, no one likes us, no one likes us, no one likes us, we don't care, we are Millwall, Super Millwall, we are Millwall from then, moo. This was followed up by, he's one of your own, he's one of our own, Ben Thompson, he's one of our own, Lee Gregory, Lee Gregory, Lee Gregory, Lee Gregory. And that was followed up by, oh, Aidan O'Brien, oh, Aidan O'Brien. And his final chant was, super, super nil, super, super nil, super, super nil, super nil, Harris, move. Into Liam's first question, and what he asked was, do you think that we will come straight back down if we get promoted? And to be honest, I don't think we would. I'm hoping, really. It's not I don't think we would, it's I'm hoping we don't. Now, the fact is that there's a chance we could go down, as there are some members of the squad that have really underperformed this season, and I think it's a case of maybe that the team did largely overperform last season, with players like Gregory, Morrison, Thompson and Archer really needing to improve, and well, they were a lot better last season compared to this season. Plus, I think that the three signings that Harris first made, which was Greg Wild, David Worrell and Shaun Hutchinson, they haven't really lived up to their hope and expectation, as Wild has been out on loan at Northampton and got injured again. David Worrell has scored 2 goals and assisted 5 in 40 matches, and he's been particularly poor if you compare him to Jed Wallace, who's played only 18 in that time and set up 1 goal and scored 3. And finally, Hutchinson has been a good signing, but the only reason I say he's been poor is due to the fact he's only played 19 matches in the entire season. So if Harris sorts out the transfers and a team can get a bit of momentum going from the promotion push, if we actually get promoted, then I reckon there is a chance that we could stay in the Championship. But it's all about getting momentum and getting the transfers right and getting the right players to do the job. Liam's second question was, who would you like to face if you could pick in the playoffs? And my answer to this one is the team we actually got, Scunthorpe United. To be honest, I do still have the bad memories of when we lost 3 to them at Wembley back in 2009, as Gary Alexander put us ahead and then we ended up losing the game to soon to be lying Martin Walford. But I tell you what, I just don't want Bradford, as they had a revenge plot, really. It's all said in the tales that they want to get revenge against us, so I definitely want to steer clear of those. And Fleetwood, I didn't want to play them either, as it seems that they are a decent side and I don't know whether we could do it against them. But Scunthorpe, I'm very happy the fact we actually got them. No would be my answer to Liam's third question, as he asked, do you think we will go to Wembley? And I'll explain my answer to this one, and it's because the teams that are in the playoffs, they're actually, in my opinion, quite a bit better than us. And I know you should back your team and everything, but we've struggled a lot this season, and even that final game wasn't exactly fantastic. And if it weren't for the unbeaten run, you would have been looking at a poor season. So we've looked off the pace quite a few times, but we have a stronger chance of getting to Wembley after getting given Scunthorpe than we did against Bradford or Fleetwood, in my opinion. I just think that those two sides are better than Scunthorpe. And Liam's final question was, do you think Jake Cooper will stay? And what I'm going to say here is something I've been saying a while. And I think that Jake Cooper, the money that they want for him and the money that he's on wages, it means that Millwall can't afford him. And I want to back this up with the fact that if Cooper is actually going to leave after his loan spell, then Millwall wouldn't need to be looking at other players if he wasn't going to leave. They are looking at other defenders. It's like Shaun Raggett's been talked about, that Harris has apparently been at the game watching him. So if Cooper was staying, they wouldn't actually be looking at other defenders, because we have plenty of defenders. Moving into the loan watch, and we're going to start with David Ford's Portsmouth side, who's actually won 1-0 against Mansfield Town to keep their battle up for the title. The game was won after a Carl Baker goal. Sid Nelson's Newport County side started off so well in their match after having a 1-0 lead, but after the 58th minute it all fell apart as Carlisle United kept their playoff hopes alive by winning the match 2-1. And Nelson did stay on the bench the entire match, but it does mean that Newport will have to win next week, or at least get a point and hope that they get better than what Hartlepool do, because if Hartlepool win, then Hartlepool could actually relegate Newport. Chris Traddock and Corin Farrell's Braintree Town have actually been officially relegated for the Vanarama national side after they lost 2-0 to Aldershot Town. And, well, in this one, all they would have needed to do was win and then actually hope that Guiseley had lost their game, so it wasn't straightforward. They had to rely on someone, and Guiseley beat Solihull Moors, so again, they just wouldn't have been able to do it even if they had won. Either way, Farrell did get 60 minutes on the board in the final match for the Irons, and Chris Traddock didn't actually feature in that game. Alfie Pavey's Dartford side won 3-2 against Poole Town, with Alfie remaining on the bench for the entire match, though Pavey may still have a chance to play with him in the playoffs for Dartford. Finally, Harry Donovan played his final game of the season for Greenwich Borough FC as they hosted Corinthian Casuals in a one-off playoff semi-final, as Greenwich Borough lost 4-3 in a close tie, with Donovan getting booked and Costin Ekim getting a red card for the Casuals. It's a shame for Gary Alexander, but I do wish him the best of luck for next season. How did Millwall perform in their game away to Bristol Rovers? Well, if you haven't heard it by now, we won 4-3. I don't know how, and I really don't care how. We did the job. Gregory scored after 5 minutes from a slight overhead kick. Then we went and extended our lead from Tony Craig tapping the ball in from 2 yards. Apparently he was offside, but either way, they count. And, well, it then got a little bit troublesome from there as Easter scored after the ball came off the post. Gregory then installed a 3-1 lead over Rovers after getting on a Morrison ball, but there was such a twist in this game as Chris Lyons would score to make it 3-2 from the edge of the box, and Rovers would make it 3-0 in the 74th minute for a free kick that no one actually touched the player for it to be given away. But Billy Bowden's free kick was beautiful, and just before the game ended, Millwall scored through Shaun Hutchinson. We almost missed out on those playoffs, but that goal ensured that we did get it, as Southend in the end did win their game. So that does mean that my key player has to be Shaun Hutchinson. He scored the winner in this absolutely crazy tie. Such an important goal for these Lions, and it means we now have the playoffs. Moving into the ups and downs for this week, and we're going to start with League 2. And in League 2, it was a battle for the title, and only 2 of the top 3 sides won, meaning that there is a new side at top of the League 2 rankings. And that side is Plymouth Argyle, as they beat Crewe Alexandra 2-1, overcoming a 1-goal deficit. They now sit at top with 86 points, and with 14th place Grimsby Town next, it puts them in a driving seat, and it's now their title to lose. Second are Doncaster Rovers, who have been in the driving seat for the majority of the season, and they slipped up after a heavy defeat to Exeter City, who beat them 3-1, and that confirmed Exeter's status as a playoff side in League 2, and meant that Rovers now have to rely on Plymouth losing to win the title and turn that 85 points into 88. The final team in the promotion spaces are Portsmouth FC, who won 1-0 against Mansfield Town, courtesy of a Carl Baker winner. That win leaves them on 84 points, and if they win their next game and both Doncaster and Plymouth lose, then they can actually win the title on the final day, but that is providing they beat strugglers Cheltenham on the final day of the season. Moving up and on to the Championship, and we will start with the side who are 24th, and obviously that is already relegated, Rotherham United. Now, they started this game perfectly as they scored in the 9th minute through Smallwood, and just before half time the game would end the way that it would after May scored an equaliser for Preston, making it 1-0 at full time, meaning that Rotherham had 22 points. 23rd are Wigan Athletic, and well, they needed a win against Reading to keep them in the league, and it seems the players didn't get the message as they were relegated after losing 1-0 to Reading after the only goal of the game came in the 6th minute from Jan Kermorgan. 22nd are Blackburn Rovers, and they have been given a lifeline as they beat Aston Villa 1-0 thanks to Danny Graham's second half winner, which means a win against Brentford could keep Blackburn in the league, with Nottingham Forest and Birmingham still being able to go down. As Blackburn and Forest actually sit on 48 points, Forest then have a tough game against Ipswich, while Birmingham will face strugglers Bristol City, with a point really being all that Birmingham need to stay in the league, but it is going to be a battle on the final day of the season to see who goes down and who stays in the league. Now on to our final section of the podcast, and that's the Millwall news. This week we only have 2 stories due to the fact there's not really much being coming out since obviously we had the game so late. And so what they are between is Morrison talking about the playoffs and the playoffs in general. So Morrison said that this season's battle for the playoffs wouldn't be his final chance of playing in the Championship. If they were to get promoted, he would still have a chance to do so. And the second story is obviously that we will be playing Scunthorpe United in a 2-legged semi-final of the League One playoffs, and I believe the home tie is this upcoming Thursday, so that'll be an interesting one to see. And so that is all we got time for today at least. Do feel free to put your questions and opinions in the comments section for the next Talk the Wall. However, before I go, don't forget to put your score predictions for that first leg against Scunthorpe in the comment section, as next week I'll be covering the game and highlighting the good and bad points. While you're down there, don't forget to tell me your opinions of the matches and Millwall as a whole. So, like, comment, subscribe, and of course I will see you guys next week for the next Talk the Wall. But until then, goodbye.